I stepped into the sleek, sterile law office, the polished floors reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights above. Every step I took felt heavier than the last, as if the tension itself had weight. My family's future teetered on the edge, and I could feel it in my bones. Across the room, my distant relatives lounged with smug confidence, their smirks sharp, predatory. They believed my auntie would blindly sign the property transfer papers, unaware of the storm about to break. The lawyer, calm and professional, mentioned deadlines casually, as though unaware of the undercurrents in the room. But to me, every word landed like a dagger, the cold weight of betrayal pressing down hard against my chest. One relative leaned in close, whispering with venom, "She never reads these. She'll sign anything." Their laughter slicing through the quiet. It stung, it burned, and I hated them for underestimating her. But my auntie, she sat with perfect composure, serene as a still lake, while a storm raged unseen behind her eyes. Her smile was quiet, almost innocent, but I could feel the intensity coiled beneath the surface. I glanced at her hand, the slight tremor betraying the weight of the moment, realizing how dangerously underestimated she was. The atmosphere thickened with expectation. Everyone assumed victory, everyone except me. The lawyer slid the stack of papers toward her, and I noticed it, the subtle flicker of suspicion in her eyes, like a predator smelling the faintest hint of deception. My relatives leaned forward, sharp and eager, anticipating the humiliation they believed inevitable for our family. A sharp pang of anger surged through me as I heard them joke about our naive nature. And then, in deliberate, unhurried motion, my auntie paused. She scanned the first few lines, her eyes narrowing, absorbing every word. Slowly, deliberately, she picked up the pen. A rush of hope surged through me, mingled with dread. Something was shifting, something powerful, something we had been waiting for. A relative nudged another, whispering with overconfidence, "She'll never catch the fine print," their smirk like a predator circling its prey. But the office air had changed. It was heavier now, electric, charged with tension. Silence pressed on everyone's chest, oppressive and suffocating. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, deafening in its intensity, as I felt the reversal creeping closer, inevitable and unstoppable. My auntie, calm yet fierce, was about to turn the tables in a way no one in that room would forget. I remember sitting in the corner of our cramped living room as a child, watching my auntie stand tall against our manipulative relatives. Her voice, calm but firm, carried through whispered arguments that I barely understood, yet every word felt like a lesson in resilience. Nights bled into mornings as I observed secret strategies unfold, legal battles waged silently behind closed doors, tactics far beyond my youthful comprehension. She moved through those conflicts like a shadow, precise, patient, untouchable. My father's warnings echoed in my ears. Trust is rare, greed is everywhere. Watch who smiles at you. They might be cutting you down behind your back. I felt those words deepen in meaning every time I saw her navigate another family betrayal. One memory stands out vividly, a property deal lost because someone trusted too easily, because blind faith allowed deceit to flourish. I can still feel the ache of that moment, the humiliation that came from being powerless in the face of family treachery. My auntie had always drilled it into me. Read everything twice. Trust no one blindly. Your mind is your armor. I can hear her voice now, steady and unwavering, a mantra that would guide me toward this day. I remember nights pressed against the doorway, listening to her plan, pacing back and forth, anger simmering, but strategy always dominating her actions. She was a storm contained, fury wrapped in ice-cold precision. I relive the sting of humiliation from past gatherings, when my voice was dismissed, ignored, like it was never meant to be heard. Yet she was always there, silent, observing, noting every slight, every smirk, every subtle betrayal. She gathered ammunition in ways I only now understand, careful, patient, deliberate, preparing for moments like this when justice could finally be served. Kind. The scars of those past betrayals burn in my chest, fueling a simmering rage as I sit here in that office, the anticipation sharp and almost unbearable. We are poised on the brink of a long-awaited reversal, every detail finally aligning. I notice the subtle tells in her posture, the slight narrowing of her eyes, the calm set of her shoulders. Every gesture betrays memory, calculation, and resolve. She remembers every insult, every dismissed word, every act of disrespect. The overhead lights cast shadows across the office, reflecting the long history of hidden grudges, the weight of silent battles fought over decades. Hi. And in that moment, I feel an unspoken connection with her, a shared fury long suppressed. I realize that we are not just relatives, we are allies forged in fire, ready to reclaim what was always ours. My auntie's pen hovered over the papers, suspended in midair, and I could feel the room itself holding its breath, waiting for a single move that would decide everything. Relatives exchanged impatient glances, tapping fingers against polished desks, oblivious to the fact that she was reading each line with painstaking care, dissecting every word for weakness and loophole. My fingers twitched against my leg, every second stretching into what felt like hours, the tension thick enough to choke on. I could sense the silent war building, the invisible battlefield between her calm calculation and their overconfidence. The air itself seemed charged, heavy with anticipation and quiet threat. She paused suddenly, raising an eyebrow at a particular clause. She whispered something under her breath, too soft for anyone else to catch, but I saw the immediate ripple of chaos it caused across their faces. The lawyer frowned, caught off guard, realizing she was no ordinary signatory. She was a strategist, a predator, masked in elegance and composure. My relatives shifted in their seats, unease creeping into the smug smirks that had dominated the room just moments ago. The room vibrated with unspoken conflict, the subtle shift in power almost tangible. Every glance, every breath, every twitch signaled a reversal they hadn't anticipated. My auntie leaned back slightly, pen still poised like a sword, scanning for loopholes, reversals, and hidden advantages. I noticed a bead of sweat forming on one cousin's temple, the first visible crack in the armor of their arrogance. Her eyes met mine briefly, a silent pact passing between us. No words were needed. Justice was coming, precise and undeniable. Relatives murmured among themselves, anxiety flickering across their faces as they sensed her strategy taking form, but it was too late, the advantage firmly in her hands. The lawyer hesitated, caught between rigid protocol and the dawning horror of being manipulated by someone who saw every angle, every trick, every trap. A mix of adrenaline and fear surged through me. I knew what was coming, and it was going to be more than humiliation. It was going to be spectacle. She began annotating the margins of the papers, every note sharp, every underline deliberate. Each word was a weapon, a precise strike designed to dismantle their overconfidence piece by piece. And in that charged silence, I realized we were moments away from watching arrogance crumble, from witnessing years of underestimation turn into a devastating, unforgettable justice. Suddenly, she set the pen down, and a slow, controlled smile crept across her face, dangerous, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. "My mistake," she said, voice calm but cutting. "This clause here changes everything." She pointed to a section I had completely overlooked, exposing their legal oversight in a single, devastating stroke. The office phone rang sharply, breaking the tension for a moment. She answered, and I could hear her lawyer friend confirming that every move, every annotation, every angle she had planned was airtight. I felt the tide shift in the room. The power was no longer with their smug confidence. It had quietly, inexorably moved into her hands. My relative's smirks faltered, confusion flickering in their eyes, quickly replaced by the first sparks of panic. The lawyer stammered, caught between the rigid procedures of his profession and her undeniable mastery of the fine print. "My conditions are simple," she said, voice steady but lethal. "We proceed only on these terms." Every syllable was a calculated strike, unraveling decades of assumed dominance. Each word she spoke was a dagger, cutting through the web of their arrogance, dismantling the illusion of control they had built over years. The tension in the room crescendoed. My heart raced, frozen by the precision unfolding before me. This was the perfect reversal, a spectacle I had only dreamed of witnessing. One cousin made a desperate attempt to interrupt, but she countered effortlessly, every objection met with cold, unyielding logic. I realized in that moment, the humiliation they had planned for us was no longer ours to bear. It had landed squarely, unmistakably, on them. She leaned back, hands folded, radiating quiet authority that filled every corner of the room. Pride swelled in my chest as I understood the brilliance of her strategy, orchestrated from the shadows, executed with flawless precision. Their arrogance crumbled visibly, layer by layer, leaving them exposed, vulnerable, and publicly humiliated in a way no one could deny or escape. She slid the papers toward me, but it wasn't me she addressed. My auntie's finger traced a hidden clause, one granting us unexpected ownership benefits, every detail executed with meticulous precision. The office gasped collectively, the sound sharp and electric. My relatives froze, eyes wide, the realization dawning too late. They had fallen straight into her trap. I could feel it, the heat of their embarrassment brushing against me like fire, every second charged with a humiliating electricity. Her calm, unwavering voice cut through the tension. "I will sign, but only under these conditions." Each word was measured, final, and inescapable. The legal documents were amended right there, every clause revised, the reversal now official and binding. I watched a cousin's jaw drop, their confidence shattered so publicly it left a silence heavier than any insult. She didn't stop there. My auntie laid bare the financial irregularities they had tried so desperately to hide, her evidence flawless, unassailable. The lawyer nodded subtly, impressed despite himself, recognizing the foresight, the strategy, the precision in her execution. A swell of vindication rose in my chest. Years of silent observation, years of restrained fury had culminated in this moment of perfect justice. Relatives, humbled and cornered, were forced to apologize, their public pride in ruins, their smugness replaced with stunned submission. Each revelation landed like a precise strike, a carefully choreographed dance of justice I had never imagined possible. I felt the catharsis of witnessing manipulation crumble, the scales of power finally tipping in our favor, balanced by intellect, patience, and unyielding resolve. She delivered a closing line, quiet but absolute, that echoed like a verdict through the room, cementing her dominance beyond dispute. The humiliation was total, emotional, public, undeniable. Every smug glance, every sly comment they had thrown at us, reflected back upon them in full force. The lesson was seared into the room. Underestimating her had been their gravest mistake. We stepped out of the office, the air outside tasting like freedom, victorious, the heavy weight of years of injustice finally lifting from our shoulders. I walked beside my auntie, reflecting on the meticulous planning, the quiet patience that had carried us through every trap, every deceit, every underestimated move. She smiled faintly, serene and unreadable, unaffected by praise, knowing that justice itself, the pure, untainted reckoning, was the only reward she had ever sought. Our relatives slunk back, heads down, avoiding eye contact, their schemes fully exposed, their arrogance shattered in a way that would linger far longer than words. I felt a lingering buzz of adrenaline, the aftermath of a confrontation so high stakes, so precise, it left my body humming with quiet triumph. Financial security and legal control now rested firmly in our hands, an unshakable foundation built from foresight, vigilance, and patience. I recalled the tension before the showdown, every second stretching, every glance loaded with danger, and I finally appreciated how every single detail had mattered. The emotional release washed over me, long buried wounds slowly soothing as I allowed myself to feel the depth of vindication. A sense of empowerment settled into my chest, knowing that strategy, patience, and careful observation had won where brute force and arrogance had failed. I watched the family dynamic shift irreversibly, respect now commanded not by fear or favoritism, but by wisdom, foresight, and the quiet power of a woman underestimated for too long. I replayed each moment in my mind, marveling at the precision of her strategy, the finesse of her moves, and the depth of their public humiliation. The emotional scars we carried began to fade, replaced by a profound understanding of resilience, of strength hidden in silence and patience. Gratitude filled me for my auntie, my mentor, my protector, the woman who had taught me that true power often waits quietly in the shadows, only revealing itself at the perfect, devastating moment. I looked directly into the camera, my voice calm but charged with a quiet fire. Never underestimate the quiet ones, I say, letting each word hang in the air, heavy with meaning. I reflect on the importance of vigilance, of reading every line, every clause, and trusting that intuition often knows more than confidence alone. Patience and observation, I share, are tools of invisible power, silent weapons that strike only when the moment is perfect. I recount the family betrayal, the long, suffocating tension, the whispered schemes that underestimated my auntie and me, and the eventual triumph that came from strategy over arrogance. The public humiliation they suffered is a cautionary tale, I explain. Not cruelty, not revenge for the sake of malice, but justice delivered with precision. I encourage viewers to recognize the hidden strength in overlooked allies, in elders who quietly carry wisdom, patience, and foresight. I narrate the catharsis, the roller coaster of emotion, the relief of finally speaking truth and seeing manipulation crumble under the weight of careful planning. Empowerment, I reflect, comes not from force or fury, but from awareness, strategic action, and the courage to act when opportunity meets preparation. I invite engagement, eyes locking with the camera. Have you ever seen someone quietly outsmart those who underestimated them? The camera lingers on me and my auntie, victorious yet composed, the tension fading slowly into calm, our triumph silent but unmistakable. The final frame fades, leaving only the sense of justice delivered, lessons learned, and quiet triumph celebrated, an unspoken warning to anyone who underestimates the patient, the observant, the quietly formidable.